we met, right? Like, so we met in Cleveland. I brought you in for a talk, right?
Yep.
And then our paths have crossed to Steubenville.
Did that? When? Yeah.
In Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And then, were we ever at a Theology Body Institute together? I don't think so.
No.
But I know you were there. And you sent your wife there, right? You got your wife to go? I think I remember when she was there.
Were you there?
I think I was supposed to be the chaplain, and I couldn't be there, and someone else covered for me.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. I don't think you've met her.
No. Okay. Just trying to put it together in my mind.
If the bishop said to you, you could live anywhere in America and do whatever ministry you see fit, would that be too overwhelming? And you're like, no, don't do me that. I'm happy in Cleveland. Or would
Yeah, that'd be very overwhelming. I'd be paralyzed by that. So many options. Like, lots of choices isn't freeing.
It's not.
It's like, it's the tyranny of choice is a tyranny. Like, it's just
it's so true.
Like, that's why obedience is freeing. Right? Like, now in our diocese, and I think most dioceses are like this, there is a little collaborativeness for assignments. So it's not like the bishop's like, go do this now. And you're like, yes, bishop, whatever you want. They usually talk to you. First off, it's usually delegate. I think people hopefully know that the bishop isn't doing every little thing. He couldn't possibly do everything in the diocese, right? So he's delegate. Usually the vicar of clergy will talk to you and ask you like, hey, there's some places opening up. Would you be interested in putting your name in for any of those? This is how it works in our diocese. And I like maybe this one, St. Billy Bob's, whatever. And it's like, all right, they said, you have to write up this formal page saying I'm interested. This is the ministries I've done so far. This is what I'm interested in. Da-da-da. You submit it. Then you go to the personnel board. They interview you.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then all of that is then submitted to the bishop as recommendations or things they noticed or things they're thinking. So the bishop looks at those pages and then he decides. But there's some collaborativeness, right? Because I think they don't want us, at the end of the day, necessity trumps anything, but I think they try to honor the person of the priest. The Holy Spirit works in me too, but there is a hierarchy as well. So it's like making a stew. You put it all together and stir it around, then you have a stew. So,
are you experiencing a lot of younger people not being married? Do you hang out with a lot of young adults? Do you see this?
Yeah. I think.
Is that good, bad, just different, just whatever?
I don't mind that people are waiting longer to get married. I still think if you can get married younger. I think that's the best way to do it. But I don't mind that they're waiting longer just because there's been so much breakdown in society and in family life that sometimes you need more years now to mature and experience new things. All the helicopter parents and all these things, by the time a kid's in his 20s, sometimes they just tend to be on their own and trying things for a while before they actually, connect with someone else. So I don't think it's a terrible thing. I know I'm the chaplain for Retrovi, as I said, so that's a marriage ministry for healing couples that are really on the down and out, and they're in a tough place. And a lot of them, it's not so much whether they should have waited or anything like that. It's more so, communication is key. Everyone says that, but it is. It really is key for them, as I've said, and learning a common vision. This is like my Father Ryan Mann analogy, right? Here he goes. If someone thinks the goal of marriage is Chicago, and another one thinks the goal of marriage is New York, all the communication in the world isn't going to help you. You guys are fundamentally going in different directions. And so one of the gifts the church gives to the world is God's goal for marriage, the plan, what it looks like, what does it mean to be married, so that the two of you freely can assent, not simply to each other, but standing next to each other to the Lord and saying, this is where we're going. And then you hold each other accountable, not to your preferences and egos and fallenness, but you're holding each other accountable to moving the family and each other in that direction. That can solve a lot of problems. I think that's one of the heart of the church is marriage prep, is getting them to understand the vision and learning how to communicate and dialogue to live a shared life that moves you down that path.
Did you ever read that book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye?
Never even heard of it.
Joshua Harris? Is that who that
I
is?
Kissed Dating Goodbye?
Yeah, it's a bloke kind of in the evangelical world who was writing sort of abstinence books and things like that. Like, I don't date, I prepare for marriage, that kind of thing. He recently kind of repudiated that work. And one of the things that came up in the discussions regarding that was this idea of, how we talk about the health and wealth gospel?
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like there's this like sexual health or wealth gospel out there that he thinks he fell into. So the health and wealth gospel is like, if you just do this, then God will give you health and riches and things like this. And it seems like sometimes we can fall into this, like, if you just wait, God has someone out there for you and he's perfect for you. And your sex life will be fantastic and everything will be great. But none of that is biblical. And none of that is true. Like it's obviously biblical that you should save sexual marriage.
Right.
I think it's statistically true that your marriage will be better off if you save and all this sort of thing. But this idea, do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And I don't think that I haven't heard Catholic speakers who speak in this area fall into this. But this is something I've been hearing in the evangelical world.
Yeah, I think we can want something so pristine that we forget that there's always a journey. So there's the ideal, right? We were talking before, and we're on a break or whatever we've been doing here, like that you're melancholic, right? Part of the melancholic temperament, right? Ideals.
Yes.
Right? The artistic ideal,
my gosh.
right? That's beautiful. That's what makes art so good. That's what makes people try so hard. But, the journey up that mountain is a journey, and you start very low on that mountain. And I think sometimes that, I'm back to the helicopter parent model, is we've been so insulated and protected from making any mistakes or ever getting hurt or ever getting diseases or ever anything like that, that we don't know how to live in life. We don't know how to hey, try something, and if it fails, it fails, but I'm going to try. Now, this doesn't mean you just pick anyone and get married, and if you get a divorce, I don't mean marriage like that. But I mean, you're going to marry someone. This is true of every single human being ever, minus Joseph. You will marry someone who has to go to confession often because they offended the living God. And if they were okay with offending the living God, they're going to be okay with offending you at times. And guess what? You're the same person as well. That's why the number one ingredient for marriage is mercy. Like a real sense of mercy. Like that says, listen, you're just as much trouble as I am. So how about we don't leave? And how about we actually work on it together? Now that's hard. That's a deflating of the ego. I'm not going to choose self-preservation. Now, if you're in an abusive relationship, not at all.
Right.
You need to get, but outside of that, this is what it's meant to do. You're meant to put people in a tough situation so that they quite literally die to all their ways of coping and justifying and rationalizing, and they open up all their wounds and pains to Christ, but also to someone who's tangible in front of them that says, I'm never leaving you. And in doing that, you begin to have the confidence that even if I make a mistake, no one's abandoning me. So I can work on it, and I can try things, and I can pray, and I can look for help, and I can grow. But people want to sidetrack that. The other way of saying that is they want to sidetrack the cross. I don't want the bloody mess of the cross. I just want the glory of the resurrection. Well, hell yeah, I do too. That'd be amazing. That's just not real. The journey is always going to be broken and messy.
What do you say to Catholics who are watching this, though, who are divorced? I mean, I kind of do think sometimes that we just overlook these people. We talk very rightly about the importance of divorce being impossible, not just evil, but impossible. Sure. But I guess legally it's not impossible, obviously. Right. And if someone's in an abusive relationship or something else.
Well, and the church grants annulments. There's some level of understanding where we do grant a declaration of invalidity.
That's right.
Does everyone know that, by the way?
Yeah, we can do it.
Real quick, I just want to point that
Yeah.
We all use the word annulment, but it's a weird word.
Yeah.
Right. The actual canon law term is a declaration of invalidity.
I like that a lot.
It's so much clearer.
More.
It clears everything.
Declaration of invalidity.
We declared that
you
this was
never married.
This was an invalid marriage from the beginning.
Yeah. It's not like your marriage has been,
It was, and now it's annulled. It never was.
There was nothing there.
Nothing came into existence at the time of the vows.
So then someone will say, so were we guilty of fornicating?
Oh, I've never thought
I
of
think
that.
the answer is probably yes,
but not
you
culpable.
Weren't culpable in
yeah,
any
you didn't
way.
know.
Yeah.
But so couples married or Catholics who are divorced. First off, you need to know that you don't need to get you don't. By the way, you don't have to stop going to communion. Right. Just because you got a civil divorce. Right. Now, if you start dating someone else, now you got to go talk to a priest, confessor, and a pastor and get things squared away.
Right. So just to make this really clear for people, so if one is validly married,
which we presume every marriage is until it's declared invalid.
Right. So since I am validly married, divorce is not a possibility for me. The only thing that can end this marriage is my death or my wife's death.
That's an invalid marriage, correct?
Right.
Yes.
But it is obviously valid, so that's why I said it that way. Now, suppose, my wife becomes, let's pick on my wife, a raging alcoholic and hurts the children and things like that, and I have to remove her out of the house, right? And then I have a civil divorce for the sake of the children. I'm still married, even though I'm civilly divorced.
Correct. And you're not trying to date. You're not.
Because I'm married.
So absolutely. So first off, you can go receive communion.
Right.
The prohibition that we hear always is when people get divorced and then on their own get remarried as if nothing ever happened and they can define reality on their own. That's the couple we say, whoa. We need to first look at the first relationship and get that, if you will, declared invalid if it is. And if it's not, we need to then address the second relationship you're in. But if you stay divorced and you're not planning a date or anything, you can receive communion.
It's complicated, right? Because we're talking about civil divorce and then divorce being impossible.
Yeah. So it's just, but I think that's a lot of good news. I think most people don't realize that. Second thing is, if you're divorced, you are not unloved by God, right? You have not been abandoned by him, right? There's a deep wound in this where they can, if you're the one who was, I don't know how you say it, where you were filed with the papers. So you received the papers. You didn't ask for it. It was done to you. There can be a real feeling of rejection and abandonment. And since marriage is the icon of divine love in the biblical witness, it can feel a lot like Jesus has hurt me. What's going on? So you need to know that that's like your spouse, your ex is not Jesus. In that moment, Jesus is right there with you. He's loving you. And you need to have some good prayer time. If you get on a good retreat, a silent retreat, if you can go on a good healing retreat, there's a wonderful divorce ministry in Pittsburgh I heard of that, and I know someone who went on it, and it was like an intense weekend and then 6 follow-up sessions and things. And they just said they went from a lot of shame, because in the Catholic world it's shameful, to acceptance and freedom and forgiveness. And this woman is a dynamite now. She's in love with the church. She was able to get an annulment, and rightfully so in that case for sure. And oh my gosh, she is fruitful. She then went on a Theology of the Body week-long course, and she is just blessing so many people.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible, and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.